You're watching Reuters TV. Here are your top stories.
North Korea puts on a show as U.S. allies talk tension.
A horrifying murder once again puts a spotlight on Facebook Live.
Apple's big plans for what it calls its biggest product.
This is Reuters Now.
A flurry of military and diplomatic moves revolving around North Korea Tuesday. Pyongyang letting off a massive live-fire artillery drill off its east coast, while an American submarine carrying Tomahawk missiles docks in the south. A U.S. aircraft carrier strike group steams for Korean waters, and top officials from South Korea, the U.S. and Japan meet in Tokyo to discuss the North's refusal to give up its nuclear program.
We agreed among the three of us that we will coordinate all actions, diplomatic, military, economic, regarding North Korea.
To top it all off, South Korea's Navy says it's holding its own live-fire exercise with U.S. destroyers on Tuesday on the opposite side of the peninsula from Pyongyang's drill. The North says Tuesday's artillery fire marks the 85th anniversary of the founding of its army, which according to state media is prepared to, quote, bring to closure the history of U.S. scheming and nuclear blackmail. Pyongyang's sole major ally, China, has been angered by the North's aggression. Beijing's media keeping up the tone Tuesday, saying the North has overestimated its own strength. Mirroring activity in Asia, U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson is set to chair a special UN Security Council meeting on the North Wednesday, the same day that top U.S. defense officials will discuss the issue in an unusual briefing involving the entire U.S. Senate at the White House.
It was in this deserted hotel in Phuket that a father filmed himself tying a rope around his baby's neck before dropping her from the rooftop. The video was up for roughly 24 hours on Facebook. This just 2 weeks after a man in Cleveland killed a 74-year-old live on the platform. Reuters reporter Dave Ingram says pressure is mounting for the social media giant to fix this, but just how is unclear.
Live is live on Facebook, and they don't have a good automated way to check for acts of violence and prevent those things from being broadcast. They rely largely on their user base, thousands and thousands of people, potentially millions of people who are watching videos and can report when they see something that violates the Facebook terms of service. Now, when they report, those videos get flagged and they get sent to workers at Facebook. They actually do have thousands of workers at Facebook who review these videos. But clearly, these workers and the viewers are not catching all the violent content on Facebook Live.
Facebook Live was launched a year ago as a way for users to stream their lives in a raw and unfiltered way. But with that openness comes obvious risks. And what began with Chewbacca Mom now includes a gang rape, a kidnapping, and the recent murders. In the latest incident, the father's suicide was not broadcast, but he was found dead near his infant daughter, who was put to rest Tuesday. The disturbing video removed after Thai officials flagged them to Facebook, but not before garnering hundreds of thousands of views.
So far, Facebook has not faced any legal liability for these incidents. They have cooperated in most cases, or all cases as far as we know, in working with authorities, giving them information in response to court orders or other requests.
While Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg at a recent conference admitted his company has not solved the problem,
we have a lot more to do here.
There are calls from some civil rights activists to take Facebook Live offline while it figures out a better way to curb this behavior. But so far, no indication from Facebook that that's likely to happen.
Bodies of villagers strewn across the ground in Myanmar's notorious northeastern state of Rakhine, the isolated region home to an oppressed Muslim minority called the Rohingya, the victims of a vicious wave of ethnic bloodletting late last year after Rohingya insurgents launched attacks on government border posts. It's a story defined by hundreds of alleged murders, countless rapes and arson by nearly 2,000 Myanmar soldiers. 8 months on, a Reuters special report looks deeper into what took place in a critical 2-week window of the crackdown. Myanmar Bureau Chief Anthony Slodkovsky led the investigation.
This is something that we've done over several months, having spoken to well over 100 of Rohingya villagers and over 200 sources that also included people in the security apparatus, in the military intelligence, in the police, in the administration. It's been a very kind of comprehensive, wide effort trying to get a lot of people here to really understand what transpired over those crucial 2 weeks.
The violence in Rakhine forced tens of thousands of Rohingya to flee to neighbouring Bangladesh, where many are attempting to rebuild their lives. Reuters spoke to women who claim they've suffered horrifically.
There were 3 soldiers. 2 of them pointed guns at me and the other took off my clothes, pushed me to the ground, and then one after the other, they raped me.
I have to say it was a harrowing, the most difficult reporting I've ever done in my life. That included talking to rape victims, talking to people who have lost not only their homeland, not only their houses, but very often their brother, their father, their family members, their mother. And so very often these people would break down in tears, remembering what they have gone through.
The Myanmar government says it's investigating alleged abuses by the army, but that's cold comfort for women who have suffered internal injuries from guns being inserted into their bodies. Even after all they've been through, some can't face the prospect of returning home. One woman telling us, "They burned my house, killed my husband and destroyed my belongings. I don't want to be reminded of those painful memories."
Ivanka Trump defending her father's attitude toward women at a conference surrounded by some of the world's most powerful female leaders. The daughter of U.S. President Donald Trump speaking at a G20 Women's Summit in Berlin.
I know from personal experience, and I think the thousands of women who have worked with and for my father for decades when he was in the private sector are a testament to his belief and solid conviction in the potential of women and their ability to do the job as well as any man.
President Trump's history on women's issues has been under intense scrutiny, partly owing to lewd comments he's made in the past and the nature of attacks he directed at female opponents and critics. But his daughter says she owes him for her success as a businesswoman, treated as an equal. She also holds a strong influence within the White House as his advisor and is reported to be a calming influence on him. There could be signs of that here. She was invited to Berlin by Germany's Chancellor Angela Merkel herself. A possible olive branch passed between the world leaders after they got off to a famously awkward start. They've been at odds on immigration, contributions to NATO, and a massive trade imbalance in Germany's favor. But he's since toned down the rhetoric, and Merkel was one of the first heads of state to visit the president after his inauguration. Seen here, seated next to Ivanka during those meetings.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on Tuesday vowing to stand up for his country in the face of new U.S. tariffs. A surprise announcement late Monday night that the U.S. would impose an average 20% tax on Canadian softwood lumber, escalating tensions between the two allies.
For decades, America has lost our jobs and our factories to unfair foreign trade.
U.S. President Donald Trump frequently rails against trade deals he believes to be bad for the American economy, often directing his attacks at countries such as Mexico and China. When Trudeau visited the White House in February, the tone between the two leaders was conciliatory, but Trump hinted he might reevaluate their ties.
We have a very outstanding trade relationship with Canada. We'll be tweaking it. We'll be doing certain things that are going to benefit both of our countries.
But compare that with the tone of these comments just last week.
Canada, what they've done to our dairy farm workers is a disgrace. It's a disgrace.
Trump suggesting Canadian dairy could also be targeted. The dispute slamming Canada's currency, which tumbled to a 14-month low against the U.S. dollar. The U.S. asserts Canada subsidizes its lumber production by letting private lumber companies log trees on public lands, giving Canadian producers an unfair advantage. Trudeau on Tuesday saying, quote, "You cannot thicken this border without hurting people on both sides of it." The U.S. move affects more than $5.6 billion in imports and comes as Canada, the U.S., and Mexico prepare to renegotiate the 23-year-old North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, which Trump has threatened to tear up.
Best way forward to a peaceful reconciliation.
So to be clear, you're not refuting that they're sending weapons to the
Oh, no, I'm not refuting that.
The head of US and international forces in Afghanistan refusing to deny reports that Russia is sending weapons to the Taliban. General John Nicholson's comments coming on Monday after a senior US military official claimed intelligence shows Moscow is supporting insurgents and that the supply of arms has been ramped up significantly in the past 18 months. As Reuters' Josh Smith explains, it's not the first time Russia's been called out.
Afghan officials have for some time complained that Russian weapons may be coming into Afghanistan, for example, over the border from Tajikistan. While American officials have not gone into particular specifics about how these weapons are coming or exactly what type, American officials now are saying that some of those weapons have included heavier guns like machine guns.
It comes as Jim Mattis makes his first visit to Afghanistan as US Defense Secretary, where he says it's going to be another tough year ahead in the fight against the Taliban and ISIS.
This, of course, comes at a time when US and Russian relations have deteriorated after some of the airstrikes in Syria. And US officials here said that if such support continues by Russia, that they would need to confront Russia. At this point, Mattis said that that would be done diplomatically, but he said that if Russia does turn out to be providing weapons to the Taliban, then that would be a violation of international law and must be dealt with appropriately.
Russia has previously denied providing any weapons or cash to the Taliban, but has said it maintains ties with the group in a bid to push for peace talks.
Apple unveiling new plans to redesign its iconic stores Tuesday, hoping to make them places where customers not only shop for iPhones, but hang out. Apple's retail guru Angela Arendt, who had poached from Burberry in 2014, appearing on CBS This Morning, explaining her vision to upgrade the stores for the first time in 15 years.
A lot of the big online guys have said they're opening stores. Amazon's investing in stores, Google's investing in stores. Starbucks figured it out, being a gathering place for, meet me at Starbucks. And, and I've told the teams, I'll know we've done a really, really great job if the next generation of Gen Z says, meet me at Apple. Did you see what's going on at Apple today?
As part of the overhaul, the Genius Bar becomes the Genius Grove, complete with indoor trees in some of its biggest locations. In others, hands-on sessions with creative pros like RZA of the Wu-Tang Clan on the art of beat making, and art installations like this one in Dubai, which Ahrens tweeted earlier this month. It's all seen as a high-profile test for Ahrens, who's sounding more Silicon Valley than Savile Row these days.
The way that we kind of talk about it inside, we say this is the largest product that Apple produces. So if you think of it, the hardware, which is the architecture of the store, the software is what happens in the store and how we basically turn on Apple Music and the App Store. So we call the software of the store that we're launching the end of May. We call that Today at Apple.
The retail reboot comes at a critical moment for Apple as it tries to bounce back from a 2016 slump in iPhone sales and eyes a possible 10th anniversary relaunch of its most successful product, likely to be announced later this year.
You're up to date. Check back later as stories develop.